but when the music's coming in, it's hot. So, or it's hot, it's loud. What about the double slates everywhere today, Terry? We've got 2 baseball, 2 basketball. Yeah, nice. Yahoo's going entirely single game basketball. They don't have any. Yeah,
really.
So they must have. I don't know. They started doing a little bit over the last 2 weeks. They were sort of testing it, I think, with baseball and with basketball. But starting last night with the play-in game and the big sponsorship we did with them, all 4 games today are single entry. So most of the optimizers out there aren't ready for it. It's like,
I'm sure that's going to be interesting.
Pro tip, Yahoo, you need to give your content providers a heads up if you want them to be prepared for your sweeping changes. It's like you have to sign NDAs for a reason, right? Because a lot of times we're live. Awesome. Hey. All right, here we go. Awesemo, it's your old pal EMac, along with one T McBee, as we're getting ready to break down the baseball Saturday. We've got dueling.
Dueling.
Yeah, well, dueling 2 slates or 2 main slates for baseball. Same thing with basketball. We have 2 different NASCAR races today with the trucks and with the Xfinity. We have hockey going off at 12:30. They have 4 games today. Just wall-to-wall content. Looks like a 4:30 lock for MMA. I'm not aware of any fighters being postponed at the moment, but in the event they do cancel some of those, they'll push that lock time back just a little bit. But Terry, we got everything and more going on today, and tomorrow we have the EPL, like every team in action. I don't know if it's the last day of their season or last day before a break, but lots of craziness. How have you been?
Doing pretty well, my friend. Doing pretty well. Great sports Saturday. I mean, there is just all kinds of stuff. There's a good junior welterweight fight tonight on ESPN. I think this should be interesting. I mean, there's just everything. So whatever you're looking for out there, it is a great sports day. This should be a fun one.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just wait a moment here and let people trickle on in, because we've got 13 games to cover. We're not going to cover those the first 2 games, which the Yankees, Chi Sox, and then what is the other one? Oh yeah, Coors Field. It's like we're missing Coors Field today. It's an odd one, but I have no problem with that. There's plenty of other hitting spots that we can go target, so we won't have to feel forced in to anything there. But we have a lot of shows coming behind us. At noon today, we have the NBA Deeper Dive. That'll be coming on right after us. That will be with Spags and Josh. And then at 1 o'clock, we're going to have the NBA Live Before Lock with Eton and Greg Ehrenberg. That will be covering the 4-game slate, which is the first of the main slates. Then we have 3 o'clock be the UFC Live Before Lock with Jason Floyd and Pete the Heat Rogers. That is a 4:30 lock, as I mentioned. 6 o'clock, we got the MLB Live Before Lock. I'll be back here with Gundacker. It's a 7:15 lock tonight, 6 games. It's one of those heavy Fox baseball slates, so they're focusing on that. And then NBA once again, 7 o'clock for the 8 o'clock tip-off for the final 2 games. You're going to have Eton, and T McBee himself will be reprising his role. You're starting us off, and you're putting us to bed, Terry.
That's it. Little bookend action with me. That's I don't know how I would feel about that out in the world, but that's what you guys got to deal with today. Sorry.
All right. Well, and my dear friend of yours, friend of tears, Seth Hader in Slack in the YouTube channel would like to remind me that there is a WNBA showdown slate tonight at 8 o'clock.
Good. There you go.
There you go. Go pester him for content for WNBA. All right, well, let's kind of jump on in here. Again, 6 games on our main slate, 7 games on this afternoon slate. The only weather that we are going to have to worry about is Denver and Kansas City. In Kansas City, there's going to be some rain showers throughout the afternoon. That should be winding down right around first pitch. There may be still some remnants or scattered showers in the area as that system continues to move on, but nothing that should really impede the game. Today's free content for NBA. We have the player rankings. For NHL, we have the player projections. For MMA, we've got the fighter ownership. projections, aka their popularity, and then MLB, we've got the top stacks tool. So you're getting a lot of good stuff there. Reminder, these things are all not all, but these are all available every day via the premium subscriptions. But we're just giving you a taste every now and then of the different tools that we have here at Awesemo. But let's jump into our first game. It is the Beltway Series, Terry. It's already warm in the DC area. I'm not that far away from the Nationals, at least as far as the crow flies, about 35, 40 miles away. It's already hot. Took the dog out this morning just before our show. She turned around and was like, wait a second, what happened to the cool weather? She's like, I don't want to be out here. So it's not the Capital Weather Gang Twitter said it's going to be summertime hot through the weekend. Ooh. So that means some home run weather here. We've got Bruce Zimmerman going against the Nationals. They have a 5.4 implied run total. Fellow lefty John Lester on the other side taking on Baltimore. They have a 4.2 implied run total. What do you want to do here with our first game?
I want to fire away with bats on both sides of this one. With those two pitchers going and in that hitting weather, yeah, I don't think there's anything really to talk about with either of these lefties. 17.9% strikeout rate over 35 2/3 for Zimmerman so far. Not very good. John Lester doing worse, 15.9 over 21 in the third innings, 4 starts for Lester, 6 for Zimmerman. I just don't think there's anything to see here. 4.58 xFIP for Zim, 4.62 for Lester. You're talking about mediocre pitchers at this point. Lester was good at one point in his career. He's not that guy anymore. So I don't think there's any need to pay these prices for these two pitchers. I would fire away with some bats. The O's got Santander back, so one of their best bats, one of their best power bats. You can get to combinations of him, Austin Hayes, Trey Mancini in there. I wouldn't even sleep on guys like, Michael Franco going down the list here. Pedro Severino, if you want to go oddball with your catcher on DK, could be a fine option. There's a lot to like in that mediocre Orioles lineup against a bad pitcher like this. On the other side of things, at least the top end of the Nationals projected lineup from Trey Turner, Juan Soto, Josh Bell, and Kyle Schwarber, it's actually pretty good now. Schwarber started to heat up, hitting the ball over the wall a little bit, getting Soto back full time. Trey Turner, those two were just all-stars. And Josh Bell's a good player. He's got a weak triple slash to start the year, 195, 258, 381. That's not great, but he's still hitting for a little power, 186 ISO so far this year, 5 home runs. I think he's going to improve as the season goes along, turn into Josh Bell again, and that's top of the lineup going to really start humming along. I would include Starlin Castro, Josh Harrison there. If you wanted to go all the way to the bottom of the lineup and use Victor Robles as a wraparound option, he's got some good speed. The on-base skills are coming around a little bit. He's up to a 348 on-base percentage, which is nice. You use him as a proxy leadoff hitter in front of the other guys. So I like both offenses here.
All righty then. I must have written down some of the wrong free content. So let me clear that up. We have the NBA main slate ownership projections. We have the MLB top pitchers tool, not the top stack tool. We have the NHL player and stack rankings. So there's your top stacks tool. And we still have the MMA ownership projections. So I've got a couple of those backwards here. It's the top of this, the tools, that, the projection. It's like, it's the same words, just in different orders for different sports, right? It was early this morning. The coffee hadn't kicked in. So there we are. My apologies.
And here you were talking about the newly formatted marketing doc and everything and how good it was. And the first time out of the gate, you blew it.
I did. Dropped the ball.
I did think those sounded familiar, but I wasn't going to correct you. I was like,
yes, there we are. All right.
It's a good one to have for free, though. If you guys out there haven't checked that out, it's something that I use all the time. It's great if you're running your own stuff. You can put it next to what you're running, which is what I do with it, and get a good feel for the leverage, where the ownership is going to be, how Alex has those pitchers ranked in terms of where their probability of being the top option on FanDuel, top 2 options on DK are. It's just a phenomenal tool. You can use it if you're not running your own stuff, just alongside our projections, put it into Fantasy Cruncher. There's all sorts of different ways to use the tool, but it's the best way to get a good feel for the pitching slate. So I would definitely recommend people checking that out if they haven't.
All right, I'm going to drop that into chat. Top pitchers. I even typed in top stack. Oh, can't do it all today. But the one thing I like, and you sort of hit on it, and this was something it took me a hot minute to figure out, but it's the top 2 pitcher percentage. And you're like, what? And then you're like, oh, this means what percent are they going to be one of the top two scorers? And that ultimately is similar to what the top stacks is, which that makes more sense. But this gives us the probability that on the two pitcher sites, Yahoo and DraftKings, that our pitcher would be one of the top two scorers, which is key. It doesn't mean they'll be first or second. It just means either. So that's kind of helpful. And sometimes you can see some people pop up a little bit where you're like, wow, I didn't realize, fill in the blank, Chris Paddock is going to be up there or what have you. And you can also see where the shelf drops off rather quickly. And that's where you can utilize the leverage, et cetera. On FanDuel, they just have the top pitcher because there's only one pitcher required for us to be playing on FanDuel. Tony A says, what side of the plate does Josh Bell hit from? The answer,
he wants.
Both, actually both. So if you're new to baseball, generally we have what is called the platoon split. So that means, are you right-handed or left-handed? And what is your opponent? So basically what happens is when you're a switch hitter, you are going to bat lefty against the righties and righty against the lefties. That is the most optimal way to go. The worst matchup is lefty on lefty, and that's just because lefties don't see that many other left-handed pitchers growing up and throughout the lower levels, high school, college, etc. And then when they get to the pros, they just don't quite have that same level of experience. Whereas righty, the second worst, righties just see righties all the time, right? So that's just kind of how that works from that standpoint. But that's what you want to think, because every now and then, like a million moons ago, I was like, but why doesn't so and so? Why don't they? I didn't understand that's what determined which side of the plate they'd hit from. Mm-hmm. And the other thing to think about: very rarely will you see a left-hander, a switch hitter, go lefty or righty. Occasionally they will if they're in a slump. Every now and then they do, or at least back when we had a lot more knuckleballers, they would occasionally do it against knuckleballers, whichever side they felt the most comfortable with, because they didn't know where the ball was going to go anyway. So that, just a little bit of a history there for that. But let's get back to this stuff, because we got plenty of baseball content. This is the fun stuff I like to talk about, though. And since we're all stuck at home, I don't get to mention this as much. And
I just tried to throw you off on another tangent about knuckleballers. Of course, I'll always talk about this.
Yes, I'm not taking the bait at the moment, but let's get back into the game because we have Lance McCullers, and he sneaks out a knuckle curve every now and then. So you got Lance McCullers going in against Texas. A little bit of weather in the area, but let's not forget that the ballpark at Arlington does have a roof now. They are in their new stadium there. He is going against Jordan Lyles. Lyles, amazingly enough, did not allow a home run in each of his last two starts. He still has 9 allowed on the season. Definitely want to look here at the Houston Bats. McCullers coming in at a lofty price tag on DraftKings, 9,500. However, just a 3.9 implied run total there for the Rangers. If the roof is closed, that will definitely help the pitching environment here, suppress some of the hitting. What do you like from our battle for Texas?
Yeah, I like the McCullers side of this one. I can definitely get to some shares of him. He's my second or third highest projected starter on that early slate. So you can definitely pull out some shares of him. Texas against right-handed pitching so far this year, sitting fourth worst in baseball, 26.6% strikeout rate, below average creating runs only by 4%. So it's not like they've been atrocious. 153 team ISO, 37 home runs hit in the split. So they're right around league average in the power marks, a little below average in creating runs. So I think it's a good opportunity for McCullers. They could turn on a couple and put up some runs here, hit a couple homers off of them. But he's not in a lot of danger. Solid pitcher, 27.7% strikeout rate. You'd like to see the walks come down. He's at 11.7%, but he's still got a 1.07 whip even with the high walks. So it's not really coming back to hurt him. Sitting at a 3.75 xFIP. Lots of light there. So I can definitely fire up some McCullers. I don't want any part of Jordan Lyles on the other side of this in terms of rostering him as a pitcher. 4.62 xFIP, 1.55 whip, 21.5% strikeout rate against a team that doesn't strike out all that much. Astros are just a very good offense, so I don't think that there's any real reason to go to a weak pitcher against them here. Just looking where they stand, they're best in baseball with a 19.3% strikeout rate against righties, creating runs 14% better than average against righties, 164 team ISO. Kind of lacking in the home run department, surprisingly, with only 28, puts them a little below average so far this season. But I expect that'll either catch up or not really matter. They're still creating runs pretty damn well. So, fire up the Houston side on both. If you wanted to if McCullers' ownership gets extreme on the early slate, if you wanted to take some hedge stacks of the Rangers, they've been a little frisky. They do have some interesting power bats that hit from the left side of the plate. So there are reasons to consider at least some shares of the Rangers offense, but it's not really a spot for me. I think McCullers can handle these guys with the strikeouts.
All right, let's continue on. First, I do want to mention the Awesemo Podcast Network. Here's the way you can get a free subscription. Wait, how do I get a free subscription when I'm using the Awesemo Podcast Network? Well, all you got to do is leave a 5-star review and rating on one of our podcasts with your Twitter handle or email address or other social media contact, and you'll be eligible to win 1 free week of Awesemo Platinum. We will be drawing 1 winner each Friday, and each of your reviews, that's right, reviews, will be eligible to win for up to 1 year. Definitely want to check that out. Plus, if you're on the go or doing errands or what have you, and you want to have the podcast, it's a very helpful way to not consume a lot of your data, especially if you are out and about. We have individual podcast feeds for each of the sports. If there's only 1 or 2 sports that you like, you can subscribe just to those, or you can choose the general channel, and every podcast that we put out will be on that one as well. I have the general channel, but I'd say only keep 5. A lot of times that doesn't even get a whole day's worth of podcasts here at Awesemo. But I also subscribe to the NFL one because I like to have some of our shows throughout the week. So then on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, when I'm out doing things, working in the yard, whatever, I can listen to some of the strategy shows, et cetera, because it's sort of evergreen content, if you will, or it's got a long shelf life, at least for that week for football. So I do enjoy the Awesemo Podcast Network. Game number 3, Minnesota at Cleveland. Cleveland rounding into quite the offense this year. They've got a 4.6 implied run total today. They're going against Kenta Maeda. On the other side, we've got the Biebs, Shane Bieber taking on the Twins. Just a 3.5 implied run total there for the Twins. Nelson Cruz, I'm trying to remember. I can't remember if he was scratched last night or he sat out, but he's questionable today. You got Jorge Polanco, who's a little bit dinged up. They've got guys that are going, no Brandon Buxton. They've had a variety of people on and off the injured list all season. They have Alex Kirilloff, who was off, or was out. Now he's back. He'll probably be batting cleanup. Miguel Sano's been on and off the list as well. I don't really want to take any of these guys against the Biebs, but I'm not really doing cartwheels for the Biebs. 11,200 lofty price point till I turn back and look at that 3.5 implied run total. Talk to me about the Biebs.
Yeah, Biebs is.
Are you a believer?
I am. I'm still annoyed that I didn't get on board, way back and draft him in the Dynasty League, years ago. Kind of thought he wasn't going to be this type of a profile pitcher, but he's turned into an elite.
The name scared you away. Tell the truth, Terry. It was the name.
It did. I didn't want to be a believer.
All right. Sorry. Yeah. I know it's true, but sorry.
Yeah, no, very much so. So, yeah, it's just, he turned into a dominant starter. He's 30.2% strikeout rate 2 years ago, 41-1 in 77 and a third innings last year, sitting at 36.4. So he's probably around that mid-30s. Like expecting 40+% is probably a little exaggerated, but I think this mid-30s number is pretty realistic to be sustained. 59 and 2/3 innings in his 9 starts. You can rely on him usually for a decent length. So you're looking at that quality start bonus, looking at the win here, most likely against, Kenta Maeda is a pitcher that I really like, but he's a guy who's been struggling decently to find his form this year so far. You mentioned the Indians offense. So I like the odds for Bieber to pick up the win here. I like the odds for him to get the quality start bonus and just a dominant force, the best pitcher on this slate, which has a few decent options in terms of pitching. But he's projected out. I've got him about 3 and change points ahead of my next highest pitcher. So it's not a huge gap, which is interesting because especially on FanDuel, there is a huge gap in the pricing between those pitchers. So that starts to get interesting when you start peeling back the onion between the overall point projection and the price point that you're getting these guys. Sonny Gray, I have projected fairly close, 7,600 for him. Lance McCullers, I already talked about, have him projected third, 9,400 for him, as compared to the 11.5 you're paying for Bieber on FanDuel. So definitely something to consider around that. I would like to look at the ownership alongside that. We didn't have the update last I checked, but that would be the deciding factor for me. How heavy I go is the ownership and what the leverage looks like on whichever site.
All right, let's continue along. We have plenty to talk about. Let me get back to my notes page here. Coming up in our next one, this is an intriguing one. So it's going to be really warm today in Cincinnati. Well, at least warm for the spring. It's going to be in the mid to upper 80s. We have about a 5 to 8 mile an hour breeze going out to left field here. That bodes well for the offense in this game, particularly from the Cincinnati side. Let's start off here with Sonny Gray. I had to go back and look and see in his last start, Terry. I felt like I had not played him all season. I was like, was he hurt? What's going on? So he actually has made 6 starts, but basically he's going about a week between starts. He at the beginning of the season ended up on the injured list with a back issue that cost him from about the middle of March through the middle of April. So he has been relatively solid his last few outings, 87, 87, 90, 95, 86 for his pitches. So I'm not that worried about that, but he literally was pitching about once a week. He went, Wednesday to Wednesday to Wednesday. He just pitched on Monday. So this will be the shortest amount of rest he's had in a month, which he's on his normal 5-day cycle here. But how do you feel about Sonny Gray in this, what should be an offensively juiced environment?
Yeah, he's projecting out well for me. So I'm going to kind of trust it. If we're getting usual Sonny Gray, let's call it 95 pitches, I think he can hit my projection without too much problem here. It's a good spot going up against this Brewers team. They are against right-handed pitching so far this year. They are the 6th worst in baseball with a 26.5% strikeout rate, and they've just not been creating any offense. 21% below average creating runs against righties, only a 1.141 ISO, 36 home runs hit in the split, puts them around league average in that category. But just a team that strikes out that much, doesn't really threaten much with the runs. Yeah, they got Christian Yelich back, one of the best players in the league, so that'll help. But I just think there's so much upside sitting here in the strikeout numbers in this offense that a pitcher like Sonny Gray can put up a very nice score, and he doesn't cost much on the Fanduel slate. He's $7,600. There's a massive difference between Sonny Gray on Fanduel and Sonny Gray on DK, where you're paying $10,400 for him. I would be a little bit more concerned about rostering him on the Draftkings slate at that price. But I'm also, again, curious to just see where the ownership falls. It looks like we do have the update in, so I'm just getting over to the early slate. Hopefully we've got that up. I pulled the main down, but I'm very curious to see where Sonny Gray ranks out in terms of that price, because that is a lot to pay if you have even a little bit of a question mark about those innings. Looks like he's drawing around 18% ownership, so he's not egregiously overowned, but he is one of the higher owned pitchers. You're getting a couple of the value guys, it looks like, jumping ahead of him, and then McCullers is the top-owned pitcher. And McCullers and Bieber, I should say, right there as the top guys. So I think he's interesting from that regard. If you're getting him about half as owned as those other 2 pitchers, he makes a solid mix-in to kind of take some of those shares away from the other guys that are going to be super chalky and put them on Sonny Gray in a good spot at a similar price. I think that's a good pivot to make.
All right. That just looking at their lineup here, because they're aggregated, they don't have an egregious strikeout total. However, it's mostly if you look at the projected lineup, it's mostly Colton Wong and Lorenzo Cain that their heavy at bats are dragging that down, because ultimately you end up with even Yelich strikes out 25% of the time. Now, the trade-off for him is he's a really good hitter. He does get a lot of extra bases, and he walks 16, 17% of the time, but it's just a function of him not being a bad player. It's just that he puts a lot of balls in play and is going after the pitches he wants to. Omar Narvaez, Dan Vogelbach, the former Mariners, they're both above league average strikeout rate, around 20-25%. Same thing with Avi Garcia, and then Travis Shaw just strikes out 1 out of every 3 times at bat, doing his best Joey Gallo impersonation there. And then Urias is marginal, doesn't have nearly as many at bats, doesn't have much power, but he still strikes out a quarter of the time. So there are a lot of strikeouts here. I was a little bit surprised to see that. When you say, all right, well, let's just assume that Wong and Cain don't strike out, literally everybody else in the lineup is above average strikeout person.
Yeah, exactly. The back end makes up for the quality up top with those first 2 hitters. And we might get Willie Adames here, depends on how quickly he can get there from Tampa. He was traded yesterday.
Ooh,
so we might see him down the end of the lineup. Yeah, making room for Wander Franco when everybody got all excited, and then they didn't call him up. They called up some other guys. So I think we're going to wait on Wander Franco down in Tampa for a little while longer. But Willie should be an interesting addition to this team. Again, I don't know if he's going to play tonight, but we'll probably be hitting toward the end of the lineup. and also not a great guy at strikeouts. That would actually boost for Sonny Gray in terms of the strikeout upside at the bottom of the lineup before that pitcher spot. Willie, not a great guy at avoiding the strikeouts, but in terms of adding a decent little bit of pop and some speed into this Brewers lineup, he will be interesting for them through the season.
All right, looking here at Brett Anderson, he's someone I always like to remind everybody that he doesn't give up a ton of power, but then people don't like to think about that. He gave up 3 home runs to Chicago in his first start. He has only given up 1 home run since then. He doesn't get a ton of strikeouts. He tries to get by on warning track fly balls. So he's always living on the edge of danger here. I don't really want to take him in the smaller ballpark against a pretty good group of hitters here in Cincinnati. But how fervently do you want to go after the Reds batsman today?
Oh, pretty fervently. This is one of my favorite teams.
I have no idea why I used that word. That just was stuck in my head. I don't know.
Good word. Solid.
I try not to use too many $10 words, but that's a fun one to say. It's a fun one to use in writing.
Trying to bolster the vocabulary of our audience, teach them a little something at the same time. I like it. Give them a little context for those big words. So, yeah, I want to fire away with Reds bats. One of my favorite teams to roster so far this season. Been paying off like crazy. Jesse Winker had a 3-home run night last night. He's turned into one of the best power bats in baseball all of a sudden. So really like getting to him off the top there. Nick Castellanos. The projected has Tyler Stevenson hitting third, which is kind of interesting. But you get to Tyler Naquin. You get to Eugenio Suarez down there. Tucker Barnhart is a switch hitting catcher who I like to get to as a sneaky catcher option from that team. Just a lot of things to offer there. It's not the greatest version of their lineup, this projected one. But I don't even hate getting down to like Kyle Farmer and Jonathan India as sneaky little infield options that don't cost you anything in terms of salary or ownership in that lineup. Depends a little bit on where they're hitting, but even if they're at the bottom of the lineup, you can get there and then wrap them around to the top with those hitters. I don't mind that very much. I'll be looking to put together this Reds lineup in a lot of different ways. You mentioned Anderson, decent at limiting the power upside, only a 13.1% strikeout rate though, against a team that's going to be making a good amount of contact, a good amount of hard contact. I just think this is one where the power of the Reds is probably going to overcome that. Something that also melted my brain, Brett Anderson's only 33. I had him as like, in my head, he's been around for forever. I had him as like, cracking 40. I didn't realize he was only 33.
Interesting. Yeah. That doesn't sound nearly, I would have pegged it at like 36 would have been my guess.
Yeah, he just seems like he's been around forever.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, so we're going to pick up the pace just a little bit here because we're having too much fun. We definitely will get through our first main slate as well as the main slate, so don't you guys worry about that, you gals either. This next one's going to be a fun one. We're going to mostly focus on the hitters. We have Mitch Keller going into Atlanta, taking on the Bravos, 5.7 implied run total there going against him. And then the other side, you got Bryce Wilson. Pittsburgh gets a 4.1 implied run total here. Last night, the Braves rolled. They had 20 runs last night, including 7 home runs and a pair of grand slams. They did 8 runs in the 8th inning when Wilmer Defoe came out to take one for the team. He allowed 8 runs, though only 1 home run, to be fair. It was a grand slam, but each of the other pitchers, the other 3 pitchers contributed to allow the other 6 home runs in that one. You've got a nice mix of power from both sides of the plate here coming in from the Braves. Ronald Acuna is one of the guys that hit a grand slam last night. He is now tied with Shohei Ohtani for 14 home runs. That is the league lead. Just 2 behind him is Freddie Freeman with 12 of his own. You've got Marcell Ozuna and Ozzie Albies in there. The interesting thing where we're picking on Howard, sorry, it's not Howard tonight. It's Keller, thank you. The main reason we want to look at going against Keller here is he does allow some power. What are you thinking about the Braves? No great shakes here that they're going to be the top stack of this slate, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a good spot for the Braves here. Keller, it's interesting. Keller's a pitcher I believe in. This is another kid that in a couple of years he's going to be pitching in Chicago or something like that. We're going to be talking about, oh wow, look at how talented he is coming out of Pittsburgh now that he's not pitching there anymore. He's got good stuff. So I'm looking forward to that day for Mitch Keller, but right now this isn't that day. I think we can fire away with these Braves bats. I like to picture when they scored all those runs late, already up 12-0. Tony La Russa sitting home watching that game on ESPN and just like shooting his TV like Elvis or something. But yeah, you don't take the foot off the gas pedal in baseball, whether you're leading or not. That's just nonsense. So I think this team can just rack up runs. Another one of my favorite teams to get to. The ownership is going to be pretty heavy. It looks like I was finally able to get the update in here. On FanDuel, you're getting a little bit of offset, and they're not that expensive through the middle with hitters like Marcell Ozuna, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, Dansby Swanson. You can go through those 4 guys all under 10%, all under 3,000, which is just absurd. On DK, it's a completely different story. You're getting the top 4 on that site, all over 25% owned, all in the high 4s to mid 5s. So it's just a very different team to stack site to site. I really like doing it. I like getting to this squad. It's just a matter of how you can put them together on DraftKings. So maybe over there you consider a 3-man. You grab Riley and Swanson, both low owned, and then pick your favorite of the top 4 hitters, put it together that way, or do like a 4-man or a 5-man, grabbing 2 or 3 of the top hitters and then offsetting some of your ownership down low. But it's just tricky to put them together in unique ways. And then they're price prohibitive as well over there. So easier to get to on FanDuel, but I love the spot for the team on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you almost read my article this morning, Terry. I did say we can look to Austin Riley, Dansby Swanson, and catcher William Contreras for some differentiation, or even as a contrarian bottom of the order stack. This is particularly true on DraftKings, where they are neither cheap nor expensive.
There you go. That's true. Yeah, all in the low 4s.
The low 4s, yeah.
Guillermo Heredia for 3 if you want him. I don't know that I need him.
Yeah, waving off. Former Mariners can't do it.
306, 403, 548 so far. 2 home runs.
Small sample size. Minuscule sample size. We have a longer track record than this, Terry.
Of course.
Dropping the link into chat. We do have a bunch of free baseball content. Yeah, we have a bunch of free baseball content every day. This is the Spotlight Hitters. That's the one I write every day, giving you a little bit of a twist. I do a stack for each of the slates. So like tonight, I talked about going against the Mariners with the Padres. I actually think Justice Sheffield's a decent pitcher, and I probably wouldn't want to attack him on the main slate. But on a 2-game late slate, we're going to have to go there. We'll talk about why, but that's my little twist on it. Terry writes a leverage article for the bats each day, in addition to giving you your best top home run hitter from each of the teams coming out of your vaunted home run model, which is on fire. Let me tell you what, folks, Terry's on a tear once again this season. And then we have Spotlight Pitchers that comes out every day. It's the companion piece for Spotlight Hitters. Those are free articles. You can get them on the Awesemo homepage every single day. So check those out. Do you want to take any of the Pittsburgh bats going against Wilson here? I don't trust Wilson as a pitcher.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The Pirates are not great collectively as hitters, but they are getting a park boost here and a weather boost.
Yeah, it's tricky. Pittsburgh is very good at one thing, which is not striking out against right-handed pitching. 21.9%, one of the better marks in the league. Beyond that, though, they're pretty bad. 116 team ISO, bottom of the league, 88 WRC plus, so 12% worse creating runs against right-handed pitching, only 21 home runs against right-handed pitching, third worst in baseball. So, second worst in baseball. So there's not a lot to love here, but I do think if we get Bryce Wilson at a 25% ownership mark, which it looks like he's pulling on FanDuel right now. I don't have the DK number in front of me, but I expect at 6,400 against this team, maybe it's also creeping up there as an SP2. I think it makes some sense to maybe take out some shares of these hitters just to attack a highly owned pitcher. A little bit contrarian there. It looks like some people are going that route, though, on FanDuel. Like you're getting some guys in this lineup. Kevin Newman up over 10%. Jacob Stallings up over 10% owned. I don't love that. I like the numbers better a lot better on DK, where they're all under 5% as a contrarian stack to throw at the highly owned pitcher. So it's dicey. If I was doing it, I would consider basically the top of the lineup. I would put Kevin Newman in there. I think he's an interesting infielder. I would definitely not leave Brian Reynolds out of it. Probably their best hitter right now. And then Gregory Polanco, I would also work in for a little bit of power. None of those guys cost anything. So not great in terms of who they are, but yeah, that would be where I would look if I'm taking out shares against Wilson here.
All right. Anything else from this one?
No, I think we got that one pretty much top to bottom. Love the home run upside for the top at least 3 hitters in the Braves lineup, getting all over 10 in my home run model there.
And we did just get that Braves lineup. Looks like it's going to be Ender Inciarte instead of Heredia at the bottom.
Okay, nice.
All righty. The Metropolitans going into Miami, taking on the Marlins. No listed pitcher yet for the Mets. Marlins will be countering with Pablo Lopez today. There's a decent chance the roof may be open. It looks like it's going to be in just the mid to upper 70s and doesn't look like there's too much humidity and no rain issues. So that would help Marlins Park be a little bit more hitting friendly than it normally is. I don't really want to tangle with Pablo Lopez. However, I don't really want to take him against the much improved Mets. Cameron Maybin, remember me game. What else you got here? Who hasn't Cameron Maybin played for?
That's it, exactly. He's just going on like a farewell tour around the league at this point. Yeah, that's it's tricky. I don't get great marks on the Mets here. They're insanely cheap on the Fanduel slate, though. Looking at this projected lineup, I don't know if we have the confirmed in yet. But everybody from Cameron Maybin in the 3 spot down is 2,400 or less on that FanDuel slate, and most of them are in the lower twos, the 22s, 22,000s. Not getting a ton of ownership. Pablo Lopez is a good pitcher, 22.7% strikeout rate this year, though not insane. Definitely right around league average, 3.98 xFIP, 1.24 WHIP. So he's not pitching up to his peak so far this season. I don't love the spot for him either. I do get a decent projection on him, but it looks like people are going to be there. So it's a spot I would probably lean more toward the Mets bats, even with this kind of ugly looking lineup they've got in here. We've got just a good handful of Mets on the IL right now, including Pete Alonso, most recently their best power hitter. But I think there's still enough to work with ridiculously. We've seen Johnny VR has been hot lately. We still get Francisco Lindor up top. I like Dominic Smith as a hitter, even though he hasn't shown us a ton so far this year. It's sitting only 240, 298, 326 with a .085 ISO. That's not him. He's a much, much better hitter than that. Last season in 199 plate appearances, he was 316, 377, 616 with a 299 ISO, 10 home runs in that sample. He's a good hitter from the left side of the plate. So I can get to some Dom Smith here. The bottom of the lineup for the Mets gets really, really ugly. So it would be dicey mixing in your Khalil Lees, your Janesh Farguses, your Jose Perazzas of the world. I would stick to the top end of the Mets stack. You've got enough room on the ownership and on the salary that you can kind of just live there. On the other side of things, it kind of depends who the Mets roll out. If it's Jordan Yamamoto, I'm getting explosive home run model numbers for the Marlins, which is not normal. Jordan Yamamoto profiles as a pretty targetable pitcher in terms of being able to grab some power against him. 2.79 home runs per 9 in a small sample last year, 6.35 in a smaller sample the year before, 1.26 before that. So he's a guy who's given up power through his career. Tends to not be the best strikeout pitcher in the world, just not a great pedigree here. So I think we can get to some of these Marlins if he's on the hill. I like the top end too, with Jazz Chisholm returns, Jesus Aguilar, Adam Duvall, Corey Dickerson, Brian Anderson. There's some good hitters in there, a little bit underrated in terms of their ability. I don't know that it necessarily is coming through in the box score fully, although Adam Duvall is having a decent year for power. Jesus Aguilar is actually having a very nice year so far. So I think there's something to like there, particularly if they get Jordan Yamamoto. If it's just a general bullpen game, I still don't hate it. So it would depend on who's coming out, but it doesn't look like they're getting very much ownership at all.
All right, final game of the slate here. We have Detroit at Kansas City. I mentioned a little bit of weather that should be clearing around early afternoon. So other than some scattered showers as that system continues to move on, we should not have too many issues here. You've got Matt Boyd going against the Kansas City Royals. The Royals have some intriguing power options here. You've got Sal Perez, who has been forever a lefty masher. You've got Jorge Soler. You also have Michael A. Taylor, who's not horrible. You got Whit Merrifield at the top of the lineup with the platoon advantage, and he's among the league leaders for stolen bases. I forget if he has 14 now, but last I saw he was leading the league. On the other side, we have Brady Singer taking on a relatively weak Detroit lineup. We have if you're looking at past history, you're going to, over the 2+ seasons, you're going to see decent power for Jonathan Scope, Miguel Cabrera, not in the form of home runs, but extra base hits, Nomar Mazara. But if you run just this season, they have all been incredibly cold. Terry, does Brady Singer make your short list for pitchers?
Ooh, boy, that's a tough ask. Let me see where he's projecting. He probably would. Yeah, it's 8,000. I'm not overly comfortable with the price tag. It's not a high price, but it's not a Brady Singer price for me. And 26% ownership on FanDuel. I think he's probably going to be highly owned again at 6,600 on DK, but I like that price a lot better in this spot as an SP2. But I do think he's got significant upside here. He's just taking on the worst lineup in the league. Detroit this season, second worst in baseball, 27.3% strikeout rate against right-handed pitching. Only a 148 team ISO, creating runs 9% worse than average in the split. You mentioned they do have some upside hitters in terms of Jonathan Scope. He's displayed power throughout his entire career. Miguel Cabrera on the back end of his career, chasing 500 home runs. I think he's 8 away as of his grand slam that he hit last night, but just not showing us any real signs of life overall. 204, 287, 330 this year with only a 126 ISO, creating runs 25% worse than average. That is doing damage to his sparkling career statistics. Nomar Mazara. Eric Haas I like as a sneaky catcher with some power, but it's not a lineup I'm really going to in this spot. I prefer the Singer side of it if I'm choosing sides in that one. But ultimately, 23.5% strikeout rate for him, 4.14 xFIP, 1.34 WHIP. He's around the league average pitcher at best on a good day. I think my preferred spot for this would probably be that Royals lineup going up against Matthew Boyd. Boyd only striking out 19.5% of hitters so far this year. Kansas City, excellent in the split against lefties, striking out fourth best in baseball, just 19.9% of the time. But they've actually been really bad in terms of power and creating runs against lefties, curiously, because you mentioned they've got a few lefty mashers in that lineup. They've only hit 7 home runs against left-handed pitching so far this season, which is worst in baseball, creating runs 16% worse than average, only a 121 team ISO. So that's concerning. I'm a little surprised. It's probably just small sample early season happenstance. I think we can rely on getting to this team, and I do like some of those bats. It's just it hasn't been there for them this season. But going to at least the top end, 1 through 5, Merrifield, you mentioned plenty of speed there, 12 stolen bases by the way. Carlos Santana, love the switch hitter with all the power there. Andrew Benintendi, lefty. Takes a little bit of a hit, but he's not getting ownership. People not going there, and the price is down. And then Sal Perez, Jorge Soler, 2 big righties. They can go deep against anybody and have a very good shot going deep against a pretty bad lefty in Matt Boyd. So definitely prefer the Kansas City side of it.
All right, that gets us through our early slate. I'm going to give you guys another chance to figure out how you can get some free Awesemo premium content. This is by utilizing the Awesemo Hall of Fame promotion here. The fun thing with the Awesemo Hall of Fame is it's easy and free. All you got to do is download the Awesemo profile pic at awesemo.com/avatar, tweet your win to the Awesemo Hall of Fame, and you'll get a free month of Awesemo premium content. Is it just that easy? Yes, it is. Tiny caveat, you just have to have a top 3 finish in any tournament with at least 5,000 entries. That's it. I didn't mention an entry fee. It can be the dime, it can be the dollar, it can be the $100, whatever you would like. As long as you finish top 3 in a 5,000 entry contest or more, you will get 30 free days of Awesemo premium content if you follow this promotion. Looking up here, I see we have from Saul Goodman, who's actually in the Awesemo premium Slack chat. He's one of an excellent member here who contributes a lot of his hockey knowledge, which I find very helpful and much appreciative. He tweets us and says, hey, it looks like the top 2 gamers on DraftKings finished 1-2 in this tournament. It's himself in second for 20,000, and then Awesemo, Alex Baker up there for 50,000. As we continue along here, you've got a couple other guys. You had B. Henry up there in first. He's had a nice run lately. You've got Hayden Brown coming in once again, and then Nick says, yep, I did it again as well. He's got a nice little hockey finish there, utilizing the coach from the movie of, now I'm blanking on his name, but for the 1980 USA hockey gold medal team. And then wrapping it up, we have Chris Giordani, who is one of our contributors behind the scenes. He writes that Spotlight Pitchers article I was talking about, as well as some other analysis. He does a little work over there on Side Action too. But with that, gamers, all you got to do is sign up, or you don't even have to sign up, just download the Awesemo logo, put it in your profile of any of the DFS sites, and if you finish top 3 in any contest with at least 5,000 entries, you will be eligible, if you follow this promotion, for a full free month of Awesemo premium content.
Favorite part of the customer support day, every time. Love giving those things out. We give a lot of them out, too. I'm creating multiple ones of those every single day. It's great. So much fun.
Do you believe in miracles, Terry?
I do.
All right, because we have 11 minutes, 6 games on the main slate. I'm just teeing you up as we race through these here. We have game 1, Boston at Philadelphia. You've got Nathan Eovaldi taking the mound for Boston. On the Philadelphia side, you have Spencer Howard. Howard got rocked a little bit last season. He's made the jump from AA to the show with the pandemic. He only had 30 innings at AA. It was a rough learning, on-the-job training. He made 3 appearances so far this season out of the bullpen, went down to AAA. He's kind of getting stretched out to be a starter, made 3 starts there. We should see him tonight for somewhere between 60 and 70 pitches, maybe as many as 75 pitches. He is somewhat does have some strikeout upside. He just has not realized it yet because he is not used to going against these top and hitters. The Boston Red Sox are incredibly good on offense. JD Martinez will be playing one of the corner outfield spots. I'm starting my stacks there. Take us through this one, Terry.
Yeah, the Red Sox are good. Fine, great. You're not allowed to say things like that when you're on a show with me. Yeah, it's a very good spot for the Red Sox. I wouldn't totally be against the idea of maybe a few Spencer Howard shares on DK at 4,000. I think there's enough strikeout upside that he could probably pay that off. He's a good pitcher. He's a good prospect, one of their top-end prospects that, like you said, just needs a little bit of time, a little bit of additional growth. Getting probably advanced up a little bit faster. They needed to replace Chase Anderson in this rotation. He's just been garbage this season. So he got advanced. He was up last year for 24 1/3, 6 starts. 20.4% strikeout rate, 5.04 xFIP, and 1.64 WHIP. He's improved in limited sample, 4 1/3 innings so far this year. Struck out 38.1% of the few hitters that he faced, 2.46 xFIP in that sample. We'll see how that expands for him, but there are strikeouts there for that salary. And there are a few strikeout happy guys in the Red Sox lineup. If he gets to them, he might just get lit up by the top end the first time through and be out of here quick. I would much prefer the Red Sox side of things in terms of the bats, like you said. I wouldn't sleep on Enrique Hernandez leading off. He's having a nice start to his year. Alex Verdugo has been excellent so far through the season. You mentioned JD. He's followed by Sander Bogarts, Rafael Devers. Christian Vasquez is an excellent catcher option. Bobby Dalbec at the bottom of the lineup has shown his prodigious power. So I love getting to the Bobby Dalbec, Hunter Renfroe, either one or the other, or both down at the bottom of this lineup. I've been doing it a lot this season. A lot of sneaky power upside down there. Basically 3 true outcomes kind of guys. They're either going to strike out, walk, or hit a home run for you. So it's a little bit dicey in terms of the production you can potentially get. You might rack up a couple zeros doing that. But I like the power upside for them. Would not really be interested in rostering Marwin Gonzalez. I do not know what the Red Sox are doing with him out there. Phillies on the other side, I wouldn't mind throwing some Philly bats against the Eovaldi. 22.5% strikeout rate over 50 innings, 3.53 xFIP, 1.18 WHIP. He's been all right, around league average. I think there's some upside in the Philly bats. They haven't been spectacular to start the year yet either, though. So it's a dicey proposition. I would save some shares, but they're not a focus for me.
All right, we're going to make some time here. We've got the Dodgers going into San Francisco. Reminder, this is going to be a 4:00 game local time in San Francisco, so it will be a tiny bit warmer than it probably would be at night, but still looking like it's going to be a 60-degree game. You've got Walker Buehler. We don't have going in. They pulled his strikeout prop. I was going to tell you guys how to utilize Awesemo Odd Shopper to shop the best odds for his strikeout props, but sadly they pulled that one down. But you can go over there and check it out and see what we've got available on the Garrett Cole front. That one's kind of interesting, but back to this game here. Buehler, a top end pitcher, absolutely. The San Francisco Giants, a better offense than they have been in years past. We have seen their park play a little more hitting friendly than it has in the past. We'll go off on that tangent some other day. But where are you ranking Walker Buehler? Is he like 1A and 1B for you on your starting pitchers tonight?
Probably. I can jump over to that tab and see how everybody ranks out. Looks like, no, actually, you know what? He's not the surprisingly top projected guy. I actually get, and I might have to look at this because of the park. Yeah, I'm not going to actually say that. Walker Buehler's my top in here. I do like the spot a lot. He's my favorite pitcher in terms of which guy I would want to go to, just based on what I know about baseball. So I'm going to look into my Robbie Ray projection. I don't really like where it's at. I think he's probably getting too many innings, which would thrust Walker Buehler to be the top option for me. Facing a San Francisco team that, yeah, the offense has been up, 46 home runs, one of the best in baseball as a team so far against right-handed pitching this year. Run creation actually 3% below average, though. Nice ISO, 179, puts them above average, but worst in baseball so far this year, 28.5% strikeout rate against righties. I think there's some nice strikeout upside for Walker Buehler here, who is a very good strikeout pitcher in his own right. 27.6% this year, was 28.6% in a smaller sample last year. 51 1/3 innings. What I really love about Buehler is he doesn't walk anybody. 3.6% walk walk rate, 3.28 xFIP, 0.88 WHIP. Not a ton of guys on base. So even if somebody does turn on one, go deep, take him deep, he's usually going to avoid big time damage. So I really like Walker Buehler here. Definitely would fire away with that. And then I'd be getting into some Dodgers stacks going the other way. I've got Nick Tropiano starting this game for the Giants, just getting called up from AAA. Kind of a nothing threat as a pitcher. 15 and 2/3 innings last year, did have a 28.8% strikeout rate, 3.94 xFIP. I think he's super targetable here. So I would fire away with some Dodgers bats.
All right, our next game, we've got Adbert Azale going into St. Louis, taking on the Cardinals. You have Miles Mikolas. Too bad we don't have those Ricola commercials anymore, because this makes me laugh every time. I always made Adam cringe whenever I would do it on shows with him, which seemed to be every time we did a show together. So this will be the first start for Miles since 2019, when he played in the National League Championship Series. He had forearm surgery last year that kept him out of the whole season, and then he's been dealing with the strained right shoulder. So we'll have to see what happens here. He did go 6 innings in his last test run, so he should be relatively stretched out. This is a mostly neutral game for me. I do like both pitchers. However, the offenses are solid, and it's a little bit more of homer-friendly weather with 80 pitch first pitch temperatures in the mid-80s, 50% humidity. Kind of I'll take whatever I get from this game on either side from any position. No preferences.
Yeah, right now for me, it looks like it's tracking a little bit more toward the Alzolay side. Only 6,800 on the Fanduel slate, so that's very appealing here. And I think there are enough strikeouts available in this Cardinals lineup with some of these hitters that he could have an upside game. Overall, they're around the middle of the league, a little bit better actually, 12th in baseball, 23.3% strikeout rate so far this season. They've hit 44 home runs, which is one of the better marks against right-handed pitching. These are all split numbers that I'm giving, by the way, but they have been 10% below average creating runs and only a 157 team ISO. So a lot of the power is focused on a few of the guys, and then a lot of the strikeouts are focused on a few of the other guys here. So it's an interesting lineup. If he's able to avoid the top end with Edman, Carlson, Goldschmidt, and Arenado, there's a pretty weak back end with a lot of strikeouts available in it. And then you get a decent strikeout rate on both Carlson and Goldschmidt up the top. So I think he can get through this lineup decently well. He's not drawing a ton of ownership on the FanDuel slate. At 8,000, I suspect he's probably even sneakier on DK. So I kind of like that. And then with McCullers, I don't like shoulder injuries. I mentioned it with Strasburg yesterday for pitchers. He came out and threw over 5 innings, so he was fine. If McCullers threw 6 in his last rehab outing, there's reason to believe that he'll throw 5 or 6 today. I just don't love it, and I would be more inclined to go toward the bats from Chicago. I like this Chicago lineup. At least 1 through 6. Jock Peterson leading off. Chris Bryant having a great year. Javi Baez, Anthony Rizzo, you know what you're getting there. Wilson Contreras, same thing. And then I wouldn't sleep on Ian Happ. Even if you wanted to go all the way down to Nico Horner, I think there's some sneakiness in his bat. So I would consider him not really as much of a wraparound, but maybe as a little end cap to a mid lineup stack.
All right, 2 minutes, 3 games. We're going to have some fun here. Terry, you get ready to do your analysis for the Rays and Jays. While you're doing that, I'm going to tell everybody about the Mariners and San Diego. Mariners gave up 16 runs last night. They also had to put 4 relievers on the COVID protocol list. They're rolling out Justice Sheffield today. He's gone 5 or 6 innings in every start this season. He's a guy I normally wouldn't want to pick on, but there's nothing left in the cupboard for the Mariners bullpen. I'm hoping for some late inning action here on the San Diego side. This is more of a late slate play for me. Trent Grisham dealing with the sore heel, may or may not start tonight. Manny Machado was given a day off last night. We don't know for sure if that was rest or for a minor injury, but I'm expecting him to play tonight. Going against Ryan Weathers, I think we can look at anybody in the top 4 of the Mariners order. They do have only a 3.2 implied run total. However, that's mostly because their offense is horrible outside of those top 5 guys. Good offense, bad offense. What are we doing with Robbie Ray?
Yeah, so what I hate here is the park. This Blue Jays park is a minor league ball field at best. We've seen all kinds of power here this season. I do get a nice projection on Robbie Ray. It was what I mentioned just a minute ago. So I'm going to look. I just checked. The innings are actually not all wonky like I thought they might be. So it's a little bit of a matchup factor here. Tampa Bay striking out 30.1% of the time against lefties this season, creating runs 7% worse than average, only a 141 team ISO. They're not that great against lefties. It's a tricky spot, but I hate the park that he's in, and that's not factored into my projections because I can't get a good park factor here. He's getting a ton of ownership at 9,100 on FanDuel, 32% owned. 9,500, I suspect he's probably pulling significant ownership on DK as well. I really like the matchup. I do not like the stadium. I do not like the price, and I do not like the ownership. And it's a Robbie Ray pitcher that I don't trust overall. He's been good this season, but he's a guy who just walked the world when he's not on. 28.9% strikeout rate, 6.6% walk rate so far this year. Last year, that walk rate was 17.9% over 51 and 2/3 innings. That's more the Robbie Ray that I've come to know. So I don't trust it. I don't love it. I'll have some, but I expect to be under the field if he's going off at 30%.
All right. Do you have anything about McClanahan you want to mention?
No, I would be inclined to roster some Blue Jays bats against him. 30.6% strikeout rate and 17 and a third innings this season. But yeah, definitely a spot you can fire away considering everything about the park and all of that. Blue Jays, plenty of power upside. I think we know enough about their lineup that we can move on.
All right, last game of the night. So let you talk about the hitters. We've got Patrick Sandoval, I think, will be starting for the Angels. Some sites are also listing Dylan Bundy. We don't know for sure, but the A's have power upside against everybody. On the other side, you have Chris Bassett, who has been pretty good, allowing 2 runs in 6 of his last 7 starts. Just 2 runs, I should say. He has a 3.43 ERA, and this is a Mike Trout-less Angels lineup. No more Albert Pujols. Not that that really matters, but their lineup falls off and looks even worse than the Mariners once you get beyond Jared Walsh. Final thoughts before we dip on out of here, Terry.
Who would have thought Albert Pujols back in the National League where there's no DH? But yeah, more importantly, really like the Chris Bassett spot here, going up against this Angels lineup without Trout in it. I think there's enough there that he could continue his great start to the season. 25.4% strikeout rate, 3.70 xFIP, 1.14 WHIP, building on the improvements that he made last year. Excellent curveball, very good pitcher. He's showing his top end here and not getting a lot of ownership, which I really like. Similar pricing at 8,800 to some of these other guys we've talked about on FanDuel. 7,800 works really well as a DKSP2, but I like the idea of getting to him at under 6% ownership on the FanDuel slate at that price. I think it's a spectacular is probably aggressive, but I think it's a good spot for what I consider a good pitcher now. I would probably take out a few hedge stack shares of the top end, at least, of the Angels lineup here, maybe dipping as far down as Taylor Ward. And if you really wanted to get frisky, you can throw Kurt Suzuki in on the Draftkings slate. But really, for me, it's more about Bassett and then the A's bats, particularly if it's Patrick Sandoval. If it is Dylan Bundy, that takes a lot out of the A's bats. But I expect that it's going to be Sandoval, which gives the A's plenty of power upside, including Matt Olson in a lefty-lefty. Don't sleep on that. And then it's just an extremely right-handed lineup with a lot of righty power. So I get very good marks for the A's up and down.
All right, with that, we're going to get on out of here. Reminder, coming up immediately is the NBA Strata Deeper Dive with Spags and Josh. That's going to be on a separate channel, but still on the Awesemo YouTube network. That will be followed up by the NBA Live Before Lock, taking you up to the 2 o'clock clock. 3 o'clock, we have MMA Live Before Lock with Jason Floyd and Pete the Heat Rogers. And then 6 o'clock, I'm back with Gundacker. We'll take a more relaxed look at our 6-game main slate in the evening. And then 7 o'clock, one more NBA show Live Before Lock, taking you into the 2 games tipping off at 8 o'clock. With that, gamers, good luck.
I may have to